So in three ways should action be circumspect. An action, to be meritorious, should embody the three marks of circumspection. The first is it lawful? The second, is it fitting? The third, is it expedient? So those are the three different things in circumspect. Is it lawful? Is it fitting? And is it expedient? An act is lawful if it, an act is unlawful if it be against the commandments of God or the church, or against the reasonable implications of any personal vow, such as those of poverty, chastity, obedience, or against the matter embodied in any other valid vow. An act is unfitting, which lacks evidence of goodness, or which, though not actually unlawful, has some appearance about it of being so, calculated to arouse scandal or to suggest evil, and as such apt to be judged unworthy of the state of the man who does it. Again, it has a lot to do with just kind of decorum, just having that understanding of who a person is and what they represent, and then not allowing themselves to do certain things. Someone who thinks about themselves all the time can easily get around all these things, because if everything's about you, you can sort out how to do things and soothe your conscience. But if you stand up the spiritual man is the object of what you're supposed to be, and you conform yourself to the spiritual man that's pleasing to God, then you avoid all these things. Okay. So a quote from St. Paul: "All things are lawful for me," says St. Paul, "but all things are not edifying." And that's what you see kind of in the Catholic world today with everybody. They base it on law. It's not unlawful to smoke. I was just at a recent thing, and two of the people just started smoking cigarettes. And there's nothing really wrong with smoking cigarettes, I guess, but it doesn't make a whole lot of sense. And then one of them just says, "Don't let my wife know." I'm thinking, well, if your wife can't know, you shouldn't be doing it anyways, because you should be able to be who you are in front of everybody all the time and not have to keep secrets about stuff, about stupid little things. So if it's a stupid little thing, like smoking a cigarette, not necessarily sinful in itself, it's just a cigarette. You're just taking money and burning it and then getting some kind of satisfaction that who knows if it's even satisfactory to smell bad and have bad breath and things, but that's what they want to do. But then you can't tell your wife about it later on, or don't let anybody know, so now you got to live kind of a secret just because of a stupid little thing. Do you see? This is the thing. Now, how does that apply to us? Well, it applies to us in anything like that. If you're not trying to live your life objectively in before God and before men in the same way, well, you got a problem on your hands, and you're living two different things. This is the thing with kids. Kids learn, they go to school, and they do all these different things, but everybody has a different, you kind of take on a different persona, as it were, in each one of those things. You act good with your parents, and you cuss like a sailor with your friends. It doesn't make any sense. But in religious life, what could it be? Well, you're one way with the superior, and you're another way with the brothers. You're one way in public, you're another way in your cell. This is the way it becomes contradictory. You either are who you are, or you're just not. So all things are lawful, but not all things are. All things do not edify. That is, many actions are not actually wrong, but may appear so to others, and because, in any case, they fail to be of service to anyone, the servant of God should avoid them. Now remember, scandal is something that leads somebody else to sin, but for us, if we act certain ways, they're pinning stuff on us because they want to hate the church anyways, they want to hate God anyways, whatever it is, they want to have a reason why they don't have to go to church, why they don't have to obey the church, why they don't have to obey God. So if they can pick something out of what you did, even though it's not wrong. For example, there was a friar he was from Italy, but he was here in the States, and he was driving through a 25-mile-an-hour neighborhood at like 60 miles an hour. And his idea was, it's not even a sin. But that is a sin, because if you're driving 60 miles, it's one thing to speed. Speeding, I mean, was it one of you that told me that 1 mile over the speed limit? Was that you? I mean, of course in America, everybody's got extra rules, but in and of itself, we normally say that speeding's not necessarily a sin. It's kind of an indifferent thing. You're keeping, if you're on a highway and there's absolutely nobody there, and you're in Texas, and you've got to travel a really long way, there's nobody around for miles, and the speed limit is 45 miles an hour, which doesn't happen, but it is, you know that you don't have to go 45 miles an hour. And it's not a sin to go over 45 miles an hour, because it's ridiculous to drive 45 miles an hour on a big highway where there's nobody around for hundreds and hundreds of miles. Now, okay, it's a ridiculous example, but again, in Ohio, you'll get that. You'll get a 55 mile an hour and there's nobody around for miles. Are you really going to just drive 55 miles an hour? And everybody knows you're not going to do that. And the people that make that law know that you're not going to do it either, so they can give you tickets. Is it a sin to do that? No, because you watch the police officers. How fast do they drive? That's what I do. I wait for a police officer and then I follow them. Because then you get to drive as fast as you want to, because they're going 90 miles an hour and they're not allowed to drive over the speed limit either without those lights flashing around in circles. So, anyways, okay. But this friar thought when the police pulled him over, he started arguing with them. They could have thrown him in jail for driving that fast in a neighborhood, because a little child walks out, you don't even see him, he's pulverized. And so that's the point. Their rules are for a purpose, but sometimes in America now, rules aren't just for a purpose. Buckle up, it's the law. That's what Father Felmer would always say. Just buckle up, it's the law. And it's like, we don't do things just because, why is that a law? Well, I mean, okay, it makes sense. For the people that have to come pick you up after you wreck your car, it's easier to clean you up inside the car than outside the car. And I think that's one of the reasons they have the buckle up thing. I don't know how many lives it saves, but maybe there's something, who cares? Okay, so an edifying example, an unedifying example often wounds the conscience of the weak and redounds to the dishonor of God, on the principle that servants who lack discipline bring discredit to their master. Now again, you have to have an understanding of what's going on in the culture, because some of you will come to me and I'll talk to you and I'll help you understand, like, you have to understand that you know that this isn't wrong or sinful to do. But if someone out in the world perceives it this other way, which they're already disposed to think that way, then it's gonna come back on us as being something sinful or whatever else. So we even have to pay attention to that. You can't just blindly go around saying, but that's not a problem, we can do what we want, it's their fault. No, you just have to realize that we have to give good example. Even though the people out there don't understand anything anymore, you still got to take that into consideration so there's not a big misunderstanding, because they'll just use it to blaspheme God. And we don't want them to blaspheme God. And again, it isn't this whole, you throw off, I'm not my brother's keeper thing. It's a charity. It's a charity to try to give the good example so it redounds to the honor of God, not in their ignorance to be against the honor of God. And that can even be with the brothers. You have a new brother that comes in, you have a brother that's been here for a long time, and there could be misunderstandings, because young vocations that come in, especially if they're scrupulous, tend to be very sensitive to everything. And so if they don't understand something, they just let it all flow around in their head until it comes up with, like, this place is wicked. And that's because you were doing something you knew you're allowed to do. You knew there's nothing wrong with it, but you forgot the fact that you used to be new too, and you were very sensitive about things. So now you act all bold in a matter. The other one gets scandalized, and it ruins their vocation. You see, this is where we have to be attentive to the way we act as well, even with the people within our community, because it's not a good example, or it's not a good explanation or reason just to say, but they have to learn. Well, they will learn, but you have to also be sensitive to the fact they don't understand stuff right now. And when you come out of the world, you're just a disaster. Like, you don't understand how things work, and you got all these high ideals that aren't reality. And after a while, like, you start understanding how things work. But we have to be attentive to that too. Thou that makest thy boast of the law, this is from Romans 2, i.e., as one consecrated to God, God's service, quote, by transgression of the law dishonoreth God. For the name of God through you is blasphemed among the Gentiles. See, that's what I'm trying to explain here. Is that if we don't give good example out there, that they blaspheme God and they blaspheme the church. It's tough. I met this man on the side of the street. I was walking to a meeting I had when I was there in Omaha. And maybe I told you all about him, but this guy stopped me, and he couldn't read. But he kept telling me all this stuff that's in the Bible. And I said, that's not the Bible. You got to read this. I can't read. And I was like, well, then what are you bringing up the Bible for? So I just started yelling at him about not being able to read. I was like, don't be bringing up the Bible. I'm now telling you all the things that are the actual answer, and you can't even go read it. So now we're having this argument. It got pretty heated, because he was a ruffian. Like, he's just cussing the whole time, and I'm yelling back at him, in a charitable way, because I kept challenging him. I didn't want to have to deal with this, So, and I was late for a meeting anyways, but I stayed there and talked to him as long as he wanted to. But then, when we get down to the Catholic thing, he asks me. My daughter went to the Catholic school. She came back and said she was a boy. Explain that to me. And I'm like, I can't explain it to you. And then he just had more after that. More filthy things after that have actually happened in the local parish, from the priest, from the Catholic school, and I can't answer that. What can I say? Now, how am I supposed to give this guy the faith? All I said is, I absolutely agree with you. Well, I 100% agree with you. Burn it all down. That's the thing. It's like, what am I supposed to say to the guy? That was a rough one. But we were friends afterwards. He wanted to walk me all the way to my place. He was like, I have to walk fast. He started with me anyways, and he just stopped and said, yeah, I can't. So he went back. And anyways, it was a fun conversation. But he's talking to me like right here. He's just right there, like talking real loud. And I'm talking real loud. And I was just thinking the police are going to come at some point in time. But it was friendly. I did think at any point he could probably stab me. But it went well. So finally, an act is inexpedient, which is void of utility or determined by no reasonable necessity. He comes empty-handed before God, whose actions, like withered boughs, are barren wood in vine and orchard, have served no useful purpose. God longs to give good measure back to us, and consequently, He is ever devising occasions of merit and opening out avenues of good work. How foolish then the culpable is the man who neglects all these to busy himself in useless and unprofitable undertakings. What folly to enter a garden stocked with choicest fruits and gather only what one may find there that is withered and bitter and hurtsome. And so that's why we have a discipline and a rule of life. We come back, we go to work, we do our work. If we find that we're talking too much and stuff, we mortify it. If we find that we're talking about secular worldly things, we try to mortify it. If we come back and we're just bouncing around, getting nothing done, we mortify it. You remember the first line of penance in our form of religious life is mortifying the interior disposition that's still disordered. We're lazy. We get back and we're tired, and we don't want to jump right back into the spiritual life. If that's the case, you mortify it. That's what it is. It's just it's penance. That's the first line of penance. The first line of penance isn't how much food you eat at the table. That helps with the ability to mortify. It's not about how much sleep you get. That helps with the ability to mortify. And all the other external things. That's not actual. Those are penances that help with your ability to mortify. You have to keep, because somebody can do all the physical penances they want to and be a demon inside. Not helpful at all. Everything has to be properly ordered. The external mortifications are to help give us clarity to internally mortify so that we can stay on the right path doing what we're supposed to be doing. Okay.